Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Yakuza 5 EX Hard video walkthrough. This is part 4, chapter 1, Abandoned Glory, and we're playing as Tatsuo Shinada, apparently, who is the new character to this Yakuza game. He is a man who specialises in both grappling to an extent, which is kind of American football / rugby tackle inspired, a couple of wrestling moves thrown in for good measure, and a finesse with weapons, which gives him a unique ability when using them. So the first thing I've done here, as you see, is I've given him some weapons to put in the slots, more for diversity than anything else. Of course, I'm wearing the bloody bindings, I'm wearing the black belt, and I'm wearing whatever that item is that's in the middle there. Those are kind of my basic setup. I like to wear like the Herculean gloves, the black belt for the extra throw damage, and then the bloody bindings to give me extra heat creation from doing attacks and things, because I'm a person who, I don't mind the debuff, I don't think it's too bad at all. It could be way worse, and I think that the benefits are just too high not to use it personally. It's my favourite item in the Yakuza series. I would prefer it to do damage rather than heat, but you know, heat is pretty good too, because heat leads to a lot of damage, especially in this game. But this is going to be more typical Yakuza fare as we run around this new location and we find out just exactly what Shinada does and a little bit of his story. As per this walkthrough, I'm not going to be doing any of the extra stuff, but I do recommend that you do. On my own first playthrough, I had probably the most fun doing the side stuff for this character. I really didn't like the baseball stuff at first, but it does grow on you as you improve at playing it, and as your character gets better, he can play it better for you as well. So it does streamline a lot of the problems with that particular mini game, which is actually way more enjoyable than when you play as any other character, because that becomes like this weird tilt fest of nonsense trying to hit these really specific targets, and I never much enjoyed that. Whereas when you play it with this guy, it's a case of hitting the right face buttons, and it adds a little measure of skill to the very high look based mini game, I would say. It's not quite up there with stuff like the bowling, which I think is great, but it's still okay. But this is the tutorial on how to use this guy's tackles and things. For some reason, I'm using a shotgun. That is not like me. But I used it. There you go. Shot a dude. Pull out another stick. Time to proceed to hit him with this big old kendo stick thing. Whatever the hell it is. Something used in wrestling that comes out in one of those bins during a hardcore match. This is a really good crowd control technique as well, where you run with it and then you swing at the end. So it's pretty good for controlling groups. My only problem with this character, aside from I don't much like him too much when it comes to playing the game, story-wise I think he's fine. The fighting is okay, but he doesn't have a counter. He doesn't have a conventional counter, and I don't really like that, because the one he does have leads to a grab, and all the people that you would use the counter on reverse grabs, so it's a little pointless really. And when you compare it to the efficacy of something like a Tiger Drop or the one that what's his name, Tiger Saijima has, those just destroy the game, whereas this guy's, it doesn't help really at all. It's kind of worthless, and I'm not a big fan of mechanics that don't have any real actual implementation in games. And there will be situations where you can use it, no doubt, but not the ones that you want to use it. Like, to me, this guy's counter effect should supersede priority over traditional grabs. Like, I understand when you grab a boss they break your guard. That makes sense. Some of them even countered you in older games. That seems okay to me. That seems like the type of thing a boss should do, because bosses are meant to be special. Special like that. I don't know why I said it like that. Really weird. But they are. They're unique. They're meant to have traits that normal enemies don't have. And a lot of them on this just kind of don't. But when you grab them, they break it. That's fine. When you grab them after a counter, they shouldn't break. That to me sounds kind of goofy. And in older games, you could grab for much longer than you seem to be able to do so with Shinada. And I remember in Yakuza 4 against the Amon brothers doing the Kamaki parry, and then you grab them from behind afterwards, obviously, and you can do a very specific move when you're in that particular hold. And it would work on him for some reason. I don't know if it's because you grabbed him from behind or how exactly that works, but it just seemed to be better in a lot of ways. And this could be 100% wrong, guys. I am by no means somebody who knows everything about these games, and just from my experience of beating them once or twice, that's how it feels. So this character he feels like he doesn't have that go-to move that you can pull out when you really need it to be. And with this character, it seems to be the weapons. It seems to be a case of just put on the weapons and do the awesome combos with the weapons. And you may be thinking, well, that sounds pretty good, and it is. The issue I have is I don't really like using weapons in this game. I don't know why either. They're really good and they're effective in that, but I think it's because they've generally got 1 to 2 move sets, and if they're not multi-hit, they're single hit, and I just don't find it to be all that interesting, as I get rid of those messages that pop up every time you play, which is really, really terrible. Oh, here we are. This is the baseball hitting. So basically, guys, you see that pink smear in the middle? That's going to move towards one of the directions, and then you have to press the coordinating button. On that particular instance, it didn't move from the center, so you were okay to probably press anything. But there is a sweet spot of when to hit it. Did you notice how, as it was coming towards me, the ball, that pink thing went yellow? If you press the button when it goes yellow, you will get the home run almost every time. The timing takes a while to get used to, and it will get easier as you get better equipment, but what you'll notice is that pink smear will move. It'll migrate across those quadrants, so sometimes you have to press different buttons to do it. And the best thing I like to do is kind of follow the smear with the middle of the buttons, so that you always keep it within range, and then just hope that you can watch it and react in time. It's not the easiest thing to do at first, but after you do it a couple times, it'll come naturally. As we run over to this particular establishment, and then it kicks off a fight against Teppei Ono, who just looks like your standard salaryman douchebag / nightclub owner man. Put him on the floor, kick him. This guy's got a lot of life, so it must be some kind. Ooh, and he counters too, so this is potentially this is technically a boss. But we have a fantastic counter when people grab us as this character, so he's really strong with that. Here comes the follow-up. There's a third follow-up here as well, I think, if you get it. Oh, goodness me. Yakuza is painful, dude. So we put him down. He lost a lot of life for that. Get the cone. Chuck the cone at him. Here he comes with the guard-breaking stuff. Like, moves like this. This enemy would be so easy to tiger drop, but we don't have that. We have that, you see? And look, immediately, I didn't even have a chance to do anything. I counter him, and what does it do? He breaks out of it before I can even throw him. It's disappointing. And it compounds an issue with this character that I explained. You know, he's got all these really interesting moves and tools, but they just feel weak as piss when he doesn't have a stable go-to counter move. And that's probably just for me, because I'm a counter-driven player. I like to play offensively defensive in a lot of games, unless the game gives you the mechanics to be outright aggressive and still counter. But unfortunately, Yakuza is one of those games where the combat is good, but it's janky. And the jank in it is a complete and utter lack of precision. And if you overextend yourself, there's no recovering in this game. You just get beat up. Like, a lot of games, pick your game. Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, God Hand, whichever kind of action game you're a fan of. If you overextend yourself in those games, you can either hold block, you can use an incredibly powerful dodge, and you're fine. Because you can use your expertise and your knowledge to get yourself out of that place. In this game, if you perhaps go for a grab and it whiffs, you can't cancel it. You can't do anything. You can't duck, you can't evade, you can't block, multi-directionally. So you are in that whiffed animation until somebody decides to punch you out of it. Or if you do a combo and you miss that final hit, or you go past them and you don't aim correctly, you're doing a combo against thin air that you can't cancel out of, and there's a lot of recovery. And if they decide to hit you from behind, you can't get out of the stun lock, because you're going to take those hits until they either stop attacking or till they knock you down. And there's a dodge in this game, of course, and there is a block in this game, but it's nowhere near the tier of a game like those ones I mentioned. And it doesn't function like that because it was never really intended to be. This is way closer to a brawler than it is one of those character action games. And if it ever moved away from that and became more precise and gave the player a bit more freedom, then I think it would improve it. Because if you look at Ryu Ga Gotoku Ishin, in that game, when you use one of the particular stances, I think it might be the sword stance, you have a multi-directional block. You can block any direction with that stance, and it feels really good. It's just, why doesn't every stance have that? It seems like such an easy thing to put in a game that would make it flow better, and then just give the enemies a guard break. You know, if you block too much, they break your guard or they grab you and what have you. That seems like it would work way better than that awkward placement of the block in these games. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.